Okay, the last really big important topic you need to get through in this basics part is how to, or kind of identifying what subtools are, which is extra objects in your scene, and then how to use the 3D gizmo to modify these things. And we haven't talked about either of those really at all, so this may be a little bit of a longer video, but it'll be important to kind of understand this. Okay, so I've got a skull in here, and I just kind of painted to make it prettier to look at. And it's got two subtools. Okay, to see subtools, you click on this little subtool palette right here, and you'll see I have the jaw right here, and then I also have the top of the skull, and I can turn these off or on, and then click on them, this little eyeball over here, to get them back. Okay, so the way you actually add additional objects into your scene as separate subtools is with this little button down here, which you'll only see if you open up the subtool palette, called Append. And what it will do is it will allow you to pick anything you've loaded in your scene. Okay, so you have to load one of these in to find that, okay, to find it. Or you can add any of these 3D meshes. Okay, and remember you can initialize those and do different things with them. So before you'll see it in here, you would need to either load a tool, which is, remember, an object, from a project you already have. And it can also be something you have opened recently, because ZBrush does keep track of those things. Okay, so for instance, if I have something in here under tool that I'm going to use, like these goblin eyes, if I just click on this up here, like this, what happens is it looks like my skull has gone away. Okay, it really hasn't. It's still there. What has happened is it's just basically swapped out one tool, one thing for another in the list. So if you actually want to add these things into a single project, what you need to do, I'm going to just click on this to go back to that, and you can always just click on these. It shows you a few of the most recent things you've done up here. So you can just click on them to flip back and forth rather than going into this kind of pull-up menu. So in order to get that back, I just click on this. Okay, I'm back here now. But if I wanted to put those eyeballs in here into this list, I'd have to click down here, Append, and then click on them. Whoops, I kind of missed those right here, like this. And now you can see they are in the same scene at the same time. Okay, and if I wanted to look at those all by themselves, I'll click on this, and I can turn these guys off. You see they're tiny little things way down here. Okay, like so. We'll get back to those in a minute. But that's how you put something into a scene, rather than creating it, yourself. You can pull something in from another place. You can also use the light box to load things into your scene, different tools and stuff like that as well. Okay. So let's screw this skull up a little bit here, just to show you then how the 3D gizmo works. So I'm going to go to deformations here, and I am just going to change the size of this thing. I'm just hitting unify here. Okay, while that may look rather interesting as a starting point for a creature, it's not what we're really looking for here. Okay, so how do I get these guys back together, scaled the way I might want to see them properly? And I'm going to do the same thing with the eyeballs later. So this is going to go through this twice. So any of these move, scale, or rotate icons up here, you can click on those. The shortcut keys are W, E, and R, and it does not matter which one you use because they all pull up the same tool. Okay, well, when this is on, those three will all use the same thing. So if I just hit W like this, you can see I get this gizmo on my screen. Okay, and when this is engaged here, I can use this to drag whichever subtool I have selected around, okay, independent of the other tool in the scene. Okay, if that makes sense. That looks really kind of cool from the side. Giant jaw. Okay, like so. Now what this thing is I'll turn it kind of sideways here so you can see it a bit better. You have a red ring, a green ring, and a blue ring, and those refer to the X, Y, and Z axes. Okay, so if I drag the red ring, it's going to rotate this guy around like that. If I use the arrows, red, green, and blue, it moves this object around, okay? And then these little boxes will scale the geometry in whatever axis you drag, okay? The one in the center here, this yellow one, is a uniform scale, so it will scale it in all three directions at once, which kind of makes sense for what I'm trying to do here. So I want to get this thing back, you know, some semblance of proportions where it was before. Okay. So there are also these little icons up here. Okay. And I've got a handout that you guys can download that talks about what these do. The biggest thing that it does is you can reposition where this thing is on the mesh. Okay. So if I hold down the Alt or Option key here and drag this down like that and let go, it will move where this thing scales from. Okay, so why would you want to do that? Well, for instance, see if I can move that back. Yes, I can. If I were trying to scale this, and you'll see this thing just kind of keeps scaling from the center of the object here. Okay, but what if I wanted to scale it from the base of this and keep it in place? Well, I can hold on Option, drag this to where I want it, let go of Option, then let go of the mouse, and now it's going to scale it from the bottom of the jaw here, like that. Okay, and this may sound a little weird at this point, but that's really, really helpful and useful to be able to reposition where that thing is scaling from when you're working with different things and trying to orient them correctly. Okay, so that's not bad. That's okay. Okay, there are a couple other things here. You can move this to the axis, which will just pull it into the center of everything here. There's some settings. This is sticky mode, which pins it in place so it doesn't keep moving around. And then you can actually, this is a really cool thing, you can use this to transpose or to scale all the tools at once. Okay, so if you have both of these guys selected, it will scale both of them like this. Okay, so once you've got things proportioned the way you like them, you don't have to keep worrying about doing them separately. That will do it essentially all together. Okay, I'll just move this back down a little bit out of the way, like so. Okay, all right, so let's try it with these little eyeballs here. So I'm just going to click on this. So even though I'm seeing everything else here, these are what's actually selected right now. So if I move this thing around, oops, if I move this guy around, sorry, I have this thing still selected here. I want to undo that. See, I have the little 3 check boxes there. I don't really want to do that. I just want to use the eyeballs. Okay. All right, so let me just scale these up a bit. Now I believe these are the back of the eyeballs, so I'm just going to drag this green ring around. You'll see it gives you a numeric set there. If you hold on Shift, it will snap. Okay, and I want to go 180 degrees on these because I want to get that part forward and let go. Okay, and if I move it up here, you'll see they are not where I want them in terms of the Z-axis up or back and forth. I'll just kind of drag that up there like so. And then I'm just going to use this big scale here to scale them both at once. Okay, kind of like that. Okay, those are way bigger than they need to be, but this is not very real anyway, so I'm just going to leave that alone. Okay, so what if I wanted to rotate one of these in a different way or do something else with it? If you have 2 objects or something in the same subtool here, like this, you can mask them to manipulate them separately. Okay, so if I hit Control and drag a box over this eye, oops, drag a box over this, oops, this guy here, oh, I've got symmetry on here, let me turn that off, like that. Now I have one of these selected. I just turned symmetry off by hitting the X key. So now I could move this other one, the one that's unmasked, separately, okay? And if I hold down Control and click, that's going to invert the mask, so I can then just move this one independent of the first one. Okay, so if you need to move them around without moving them into separate subtools and things like that, you can do that by just masking part of the thing you want to or you don't want to affect. And then to clear the mask, I just drag a little bit and with Control held down. Okay, so that's kind of the basis. To get out of this, you just click on Draw up here. You can hit the Q key to do that as well. Okay, and that's the story of subtools. Okay, and that's how you actually start to build things up inside of ZBrush to make more complex objects because you don't want to have them all showing at once. It's much easier to work on things independently. You can also turn ghosting on over here, transparency, sorry, and then it'll only show whichever one you're actually clicked on here, working on. Okay, and that'll just sort of give you a template of where the other things are without actually getting them in the way, so you can see through them to position this, like the jawbone here, underneath the clavicle. That is, yeah, not clavicle, jeez, sorry, mandible. They're both wrong. I don't remember my anatomy anymore. It's okay. Anyway, there we go. I think that's about all you need to know right now about those tools. For the moment, that's good to go. Main thing is just the subtool idea. Okay, so you should be good to go with that. We hope.